Welcome to our second debate of the day. Our expert witnesses are already on stage, poised and ready to go. So let us crack on. Open RAN and closed ranks. It's the million-dollar question. Will Open RAN actually deliver? I mean, there's no surprise there's this battle royale going on between supporters and detractors. So what we want to know is, what's it going to take to get Open RAN over the line and bring its much promised innovation and agility to operators? Well, it is time to find out. We're going to crack on and hear from our expert witnesses first. So, can we have our first expert witness to the lectern? Constantine, please. Constantine Polychronopoulos is Vice President of 5G and Telco Cloud at Juniper Networks.
Thank you, Guy. I have a good concept of hours, not on minutes, so feel free to call me out. What will it take to make ORAN a reality? I like to say that you can never go up against the tide of technology evolution. I think ORAN is going to happen one way or another. Let's talk briefly about what Neil was talking about, network as a service. Our vision at Juniper is not just a vision, but how we can put the building blocks together to deliver network as a service in the world of ORAN and 3GPP. But network as a service is easy to say. Imagine us defining a network, calling up, defining a network, just local network, dedicated to us for 2-3 days. And when we leave this venue, we go to 5-6 hotels, we can still connect, not just through EE, but through Vodafone, through whatever, we get the same service, right? And then our network goes up. That's one example of network as a service. Another example is planet scale MVNO that I can stand up in a matter of hours. Imagine that, leveraging public clouds, my on-prem clouds, etc. And I want to be able to attach to that an SLA, quality of service, etc. Can we get there? Well, ORAN is a huge step towards that eventuality. It's transformational. And it's not just about telco, it's about enterprise. It's going to transform the entire ecosystem. And I want to stay here for, on the ORAN on two primary points. One is the radio intelligent controller, and the other is the end-to-end concept. And when we talk about end-to-end, the ability to stitch everything together, we're talking about the domain controllers, the RAN, the transport, many islands of transport, right? Metro, transport, backhaul, etc. And the core, where we forget the internet. That's the fourth domain. And you need to put everything together, stitch it together, and deliver SLA, quality of service, specific services, right? So think about what is the last bastion, the last mile really is the key part where we have to deliver the SLA. And the RIC, without the RIC, we cannot do it. An analogy is a server. Think about the old days where an application was fully integrated with the operating system, or sort of, versus today, where we have a server with the operating system and we run applications. So it's the same when it comes to RAN, different RANs from different vendors, versus the ORAN architecture, which provides the RIC as the operating system, where now we can focus on applications. We don't have to worry about the peculiarities and idiosyncrasies of the RAN, right? We have a common API, common service model, and we can focus on the applications to deliver the SLA, to do energy efficiency, to do MIMO optimization. It's transformational, it's essential. Am I out of time?
You're out of time. We're ready,
Okay.
Constantine. But do you want to finish off? Going to wrap up?
The last thing I wish we could talk about is network slicing. Absolutely.
That's opening a whole other can.
Let's open another can.
I'm sure that's going to come up in the debate, Constantine. I'm absolutely sure. Round of applause for Constantine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next guest is a returning Francesca Serravalle, Head of Infrastructure and Energy at Vodafone UK, who is standing in for her colleague Andrea Donna, who was originally to speak here, but we are delighted, of course, to have Francesca with us. Please.
Thank you. So, as you know, Vodafone has been always a supporter of Open RAN. And our journey started even before TIP or Open RAN Alliance were created. And we have helped to prove the technology, to develop the ecosystem, we have deployed O-RAN. Back in 2020, we have deployed our first 4G O-RAN sites, and then in 2021, 5G O-RAN sites. And a few days ago, we have deployed in our golden cluster. And we have committed to deploy Open RAN in 30% of our network by 2030. So we believe that the Open RAN is the sustainable solution for RAN evolution. And I think the industry should acknowledge that, because we know the benefit it will bring and is bringing the benefit in terms of resiliencies through supply chain diversity. It's bringing the benefit of innovation through competition, but also of agility and flexibility of deployment, because we can choose based on the breed software stack depending on deployment. Now, I think it's also important for us to really see more commitment from the service provider community into the deployment. And that's because the more we deploy, the more we scale our deployment, we accelerate the deployment roadmap, the more innovation we drive, the more investment we drive, and that in turn will drive innovation, a new use case, a new deployment scenario. It's also important that this is not just a technology play. This is also, O-RAN should be part of our digital journey, as I was talking before, because it's just, we need to change culturally the way we build, we maintain, and we assure the RAN, as well as, in general, the network, where our engineers, they work together with the suppliers, they co-develop, and they are much faster in creating and enhancing new capability of the management platform and the RAN platform. So, thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. Round of applause. Thank you very much. Well, our next expert witness is Ian Goetz, who is Director of Global RAN Systems Architecture at Dell Technologies. So please, Ian.
Morning, everyone. So the debate, is O-RAN delivering? Is O-RAN real? As you heard from Francesca, it certainly is real. We turned it on actually in my hometown. I grew up in Exmouth, where the Golden Cluster is going live first. I congratulate the Vodafone radio planning team on prioritising the beach, the golf course, and one really nice pub, if you look at the three sectors of the cell site. But with all flippancy to one side, O-RAN is delivering in different places. I think one of the debates that people expect, as an industry, we're very good at, let's have another G. Oh, what about SDN? What about this? What about that? Talking it up, and then if it doesn't deliver in 6 months to thousands of locations all over the world, then we start talking it down. If you look at O-RAN, in some places, it's already delivering brand new networks. Rakuten, Dish, 1&1 in Germany. Obviously, 5G standalone, they only have really one frequency band. They've got an easier ride to do Open RAN. If you look at other places, private 5G, there's a substantial amount of Open RAN already deployed in private 5G across Europe and Asia. Customers don't care, to Neil's point, whether it's Open RAN or not, but the suppliers of the radio system are generally using either option 2 or option 7.2 splits. So Open RAN's delivering there. As you get into the service provider world that we inhabit with generally in telcos, there are very few greenfield locations. So you've got to deal with 4G, you've got to deal with 5G NSA, and you've got to keep those things going for quite a period of time before you get to go to SA. So that means you've got some complexity to deal with. Most European carriers, and as I've been finding from RFPs from many of them over the last 17 months that I've been in Dell, they want 2G as well. Now, there isn't an O-RAN split for 2G, and people want to have virtualized 2G, and that's because somebody says we have to have the 112 emergency service, again to Neil's point about 999 in this country. And if you're going to start filling in holes in coverage as you move to 5G with O-RAN, you need to be able to support the 2G as well. So that's areas of brownfield complexity which slows things down, means you have to go through longer testing. So that's one thing that then comes up, is you're bringing together multiple components from multiple vendors to create a base station, which in the past you just ordered from a single vendor and it turned up on the back of the lorry and you craned it into position, or increasingly you walk it into position. So we've got to create an SI environment that means that we're not doing the SI bespoke for every operator, but we're doing the specialist part of their deployment just for that operator. Dell's working in that space with OTEL, our Open Telecom Ecosystem Lab. Then you get into the servers, obviously specialist for Dell, but we're trying to drive down energy, power consumption. moving towards layer 1 acceleration. So increasingly, O-RAN becomes a more attractive option. So that's what we're doing. That's where we're going. And I believe O-RAN is delivering, just maybe not as fast as some of you would like it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ian. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Now, not all of our invited speakers were able to get here in person today. There's various travel restrictions and what have you, and we do live in this hybrid world, so we wanted to hear their contributions. So we did record a couple of witness statements in advance. So let's hear now a perspective on Open RAN from Jose Antonio Aranda. It's coming up just now.
It's going to take still some more years. There are different promises in the Open RAN space, like having wider ecosystem and not being able to rely on a smaller amount of suppliers. But the reality is that still Open RAN have few stable suppliers. Also, the scalability of the solutions is not there yet. There needs to be a little bit of more work. Faster deployment is a key aspect. For instance, one of the things that we have seen that it takes months to have everything working because of the different integrations. So I think that the Open RAN performance have a little bit to go compare with the classic RAN. We have a lot of expectations in functionalities like RIC. We have a lot of expectations on the integration of Open RAN with edge computing capabilities. And also we have a lot of expectations on the work that interoperability between different vendors is being done. From the neutral host perspective, we see that the ecosystem is still a little bit immature, and there is still a lot of work to be done on commercial aspects. We have been trying to demonstrate the capabilities of Open RAN in different scenarios related to our commercial activities, such as the possibility of offering small cells and DAS systems in the UK, for instance. And we have struggled to find solutions in the market that enables us to offer such service. Also, things like a multi-mobile operator or millimeter wave, we have tried in Barcelona in one of our trials. Again, we see that the market hasn't got too many solutions in this, and there's a lot of work to be done. On artificial intelligence, we have seen as well that RIC was very promising. We have tried to offer energy savings or balancing loading between different mobile operators. Again, we haven't found too many solutions in the market. And also the last one, under the Frank promise, we have tried to see whether Open RAN could be used to provide interoperability between private and public networks. Still a little bit of work to be done yet.
Well, our thanks to Jose Antonio Aranda of Cellnex for contributing those comments in under 3 minutes as well, so we appreciate that. Right, back to our stage, and our next expert witness is Gil Hellmann. Yes, it is, it's Gil. Gil's next. Gil's Vice President of Telecom Solutions Engineering and Architecture at Wind River. I got my order wrong there, Gil, but the podium is yours.
So I guess I can get more than 3 minutes.
Good try.
Okay, so I'll start with, I will say, Open RAN is a reality. It's actually, if you're looking at Verizon, for example, and then Vodafone, its deployment, it's at scale in some cases, like Verizon, tens of thousands of sites. It's really not a matter of a technology. I can tell you from someone that it's in the trenches and deploying this, working with my team. It's about the mindset. It's about focusing really about the yes, that how can we do it rather than why not. Okay, I'm working in the telco industry for quite a long time, and we just heard some saying there is always a reasoning why not, like the ecosystem, it's not big enough. And for example, we're expecting all those type of things from the RIC, for example. It's a journey. You need to start from somewhere. If you look, for example, at Verizon, if you look at the pure terminology of Open RAN, you can argue that maybe it's not an Open RAN, but they basically did a 7.2 split disaggregation between the management, the application, the infrastructure. And today it's deployed at tens of thousands of sites, deployed successfully, basically on narrowband, on C-band. You're going in New York City, for example, Manhattan, and it's working. Okay? Vodafone pushed it to the next level and basically opened up the frontal interface. Okay? So it's happening and it's a journey. And you can't do everything in one day. Okay? It's the will of the service provider to basically be agile and take the, call it maybe not so much the risk, but find the opportunity to do it. Find the part of the network that it makes sense to do it. For example, Verizon started just with the 5G NR. Okay? Vodafone, it's doing more than just 5G. So it's basically step by step. Okay? It is working. If you're looking from the economics, today after more than a year of operational of the network in Verizon, the economics, it's there. Maybe it's not let's say, delivering the cost savings that people are aspiring to, but it's definitely not more expensive. Okay, we have the KPI. The network operates as good, and in some cases even better than the traditional network. And as more and more operators will adopt it and will push it forward, the ecosystem will grow and it will become just more cost efficient and cost effective. And it's many operators, when I speak with, always asking me, okay, so we want to open up the network, but really we need a killer app. The application that will run on the network. What is this killer app? And no one can tell you. And the reason no one can tell you, because you first need to have the infrastructure, you need to have the network to enable this, and then those will come. Same like if you're looking at the transformation that happened with the app on the mobile phone, with the iPhone. Okay, iPhone came, there were not a lot of apps, and then it created an environment, and those apps started to appear. It will be the same thing. So it's definitely going to happen, it's happening, and I will argue that it's commercially viable.
Thank you, Gil. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gil. Well, our next expert witness is Sanjay Upal, and Sanjay is SVP and GM, Service Provider and Edge Business Unit at VMware. Sanjay.
Thank you. So it's great to be here. I think that Open RAN will get there once we recognize that we have failed as an industry. I think if we compare the market growth, market capital growth of telecom operators to cloud and software, we are woefully behind. I don't think the people who actually use the systems that we build, the consumers and the businesses, care, what do you say in local parlance? Care bullocks about our 7.2 splits and our Ricks and our Daves and our Johns. They don't. What they care about is user experience. What they care about is the applications that they run. And that is what we need to do as an industry. We need to put things in the context of what the users want. So let's take an example. Let's see what's happening with the latency requirements of the metaverse. Now, we all know that when people type, they need to get a response within 150 milliseconds, and a lot of our systems have been built terminal response for that kind of infrastructure. So we constructed the protocols to give that sort of response time. Well, in the metaverse, you need 10 milliseconds or less. Otherwise, when your head turns, you feel nauseous. In the context of the application is where we need to get to, and that requires a programmable network. So it should all start from the context of what the application requires, rather than us feeling really proud of all our 7.2 splits and our Ricks and the fast networks and all that we've built. The other thing that is missing is tariffs. How many times we have heard of network slicing? Has anyone come up with a network slicing tariff? There isn't one. If you go to the Super Bowl, people spend $2,000 on a Super Bowl ticket. They spend $200 on parking. Would they spend $50 to give a pristine 4K image that they're at the Super Bowl and they're telling all of their friends, look how wonderful it is? And guess what? The millennials, of which my two kids belong to that generation, or maybe it's generation XZ, I kind of forget the letters, but they belong to one of those generations with a letter. They would pay that kind of money. But we haven't seen a tariff like that. You know, we get very happy with all the technology that we build. But if we put it into the context of what people will actually pay, and we come up with an association. So if someone's sitting in that Super Bowl game, they turn on just for the point when Jimmy Garoppolo has thrown a touchdown, and they get a pristine 4K image that they can send to all of their friends. I can bet you they paid $2,000 for that ticket. They will spend another $50 to do that. Same thing, of course, with what's going on right now with the FIFA World Cup. So to round it out, you know, I don't think we should get too excited about the technologies and whether it's O-RAN or A-RAN or Z-RAN. We should put it in the context of abstractions, APIs, and interfaces. Abstractions, APIs, and interfaces to the applications that will pay for all of us to be sitting here having this debate.
Interesting. Sanjay, great. Well said. Thank you very much. Our next guest then, our last guest for this session is Kristian Toivo, who is the Executive Director of the Telecom Infra Project, or TIP. Kristian, please.
Thank you. So many wise words said, and I just want to make a quick reflection on the previous debate or motion about the digital service provider. That has to be done as much as we have to do the technology transformation. So I don't think it's either or, it's both. So I have the great pleasure of leading Telecom Infra Project TIP. Our sole mission is to promote and enable commercial deployment of open and disaggregated connectivity solutions, out of which Open RAN obviously is the kind of the flagship. There are many other things as well, and some of them are more advanced, like Open Wi-Fi and Open Transport, because they have been, I would say, easier to take on and also easier to deploy. So I had 3 things I wanted to share. One is just recap, at least from my mind, why are we doing all this Open RAN stuff? Secondly, wanted to quickly reflect on where do I think we are right now as an industry in this technology play? And thirdly, what's left to do? So I think there's many definitions on why we are doing Open RAN. I have 3 points of it. One is obviously the broadening of the supply chain, or as somebody in our Fuse conference in Madrid, I think it was Iago Tenorio said, is to create more optionality, simply to get a broader ecosystem into our, let's say, probably most important delivery supply chain, which is RAN in the telco industry. The other thing, which I actually think is more important personally, is to promote innovation. For me, it is very much connected with some of the architectural things. Rick has been mentioned a few times, but more in principle, when you open up and enable disaggregation and open interfaces, there's simply much more folks that can come in, not necessarily all big companies. You have entrepreneurs and smaller players, or even companies from adjacent industries where maybe we are more advanced with things like artificial intelligence that can be enabled to provide value. Second thing is, or the third thing is to basically enable the cloud transformation. I think this whole thing is about moving the telco networks into the cloud. So where are we today? The technology is proven. There are trials, plug fests, POCs done. There are careful deployments, have been mentioned by others already. But what is it that has to be done? What's left to be done? I think there needs to be a bit more guts, meaning taking the technology, actually starting to deploy it, because if you want to have a change, you need to take some risk. And we are obviously in this industry well used to drive technological change, and for some reason I feel we are kind of looking and checking and wondering how to get it done. I say just go out and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristian. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you to all our expert witnesses. You've heard from all of them now. So obviously we're at that point where we are turning to Chris and Graham, because what we really need now is a great telco debate motion. So Graham, do you have?
We do have a motion, and I'm going to get it right this time instead of getting it wrong. So the motion is Open RAN solves geopolitical and technical issues, but fails to address the telco's commercial and economic challenges. And at the flip of a coin, Chris was the person going to speak for this motion.
So I know that Ian Fogg in particular will break down this motion, and there's a phrase comes to mind that everything before the but is bollocks. So I put to you that addressing the economic and commercial issues for the industry are not being addressed. We're doing a lot of inward-looking, I won't say navel-gazing, but we're doing a lot of inward-looking when, in fact, to the point in the previous debate, we really should be looking at how do we build a more robust, more integrated solution that faces out and delivers the service that people require in their different environments. So, yes, of course, with geopolitical means we have to be careful about what we say around the language that we use. We should be very careful about what sort of competition we want to create in the supply area. There's no question we need to improve the way the supply environment works. But my question to the industry is, what problem is this solving? because I think in the interest of delivering a robust product, and by the way, I'm still not convinced what product we're selling to the end customer. We'll come back to that later, I'm sure. But in the interest of that, we do need to build this much more seamless, to the abstraction point made in some of the opening comments, to make sure that we build this underlying engine which can be leveraged in whatever way required. Let's not get distracted unnecessarily. I agree we need to open up the debate to a certain extent, but let's not get distracted from what the real purpose of this industry, which is struggling from the view of the financial markets. So I encourage you to vote for the motion.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to vote against the motion, red side up, and I'm going to tell you why. Look, in this industry, over the past 20 years, we've seen an unstoppable trajectory of the separation of software and hardware. We've seen that in the core, and now we're seeing it in the radio as well. And the benefits of that are enormous. And it gives you more flexibility, it broadens the supply chain, it encourages innovation from new suppliers and new entrants. It reduces the barrier of entry for innovative solutions. And yes, it is true that Open RAN doesn't address all industry needs at the moment. There is no 2G solution for Open RAN, for example. That's true. But we're on a pathway and there's no stopping us. So, ladies and gentlemen, I urge you to vote against the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Graham, thank you very much. Chris, thank you very much for that. We've heard the fors and against. We are not going to vote just yet, though, because we are going to have a heated debate. So, Ray, please come up and coordinate this heated debate.
Right, there you go, folks. A heated debate is what we are looking for, but I'm sure you don't need too much encouragement for that, right? So again, I need the big hand waving. So I'm going to come to the middle table there first, and then the front table here, and then we'll see, and then there's one over there as well, and I see one at the back. So let's come to the middle table. Name and title first, and then the question to the panel, please.
Yeah, thank you. Monica Paolini, Senza Fili. So I'd like to have a very basic question. What is Open RAN? Because if we need to know what it delivers, what is it? And I have more specific questions. If we have, technically, if you use the open interface, you have Open RAN. So can you have Open RAN with single vendor, as long as you use the open interface? Do you need to have a centralized RAN, or could it be just the RU at the site? Can you have, instead of off-the-shelf hardware, can you have customized hardware? And do you need the RAN to be virtualized in order to call it Open RAN? And finally, do you need direct to have Open RAN?
So how many questions was that? 5?
I've been cheating a little bit. But basically, what is it?
That's right. Okay, who wants to take all 5? No, okay, we'll start with you.
All 5 of them, yeah. Okay. So, probably you don't, one vendor can provide everything. What is Open RAN? I mean, we keep dismissing technology, and we focus on the service. Well, to deliver the value, you've got to have the building blocks, right? And that's, nobody here is, for technology for the sake of technology. We all look at the end goal, okay? So ORAN basically focuses on simplifying the architecture of the network to be able to offer then user services like network as a service, strict SLA, what Sanjay was talking about, right? That's a network slice, along with the SLA, the quality of service, that you can stand up, for a day, for an hour, for a month, for a year, right? For one user, for 10 million users. So how can we get to a fully programmable network, okay, the intent-based, right, in a seamless way? That's really the end goal. ORAN is an absolute catalyst to deliver that. The radio intelligent controller is the operating system of the RAN. So it simplifies. You no longer have to stick with whatever a vendor gives you, right? You now can select different RU vendors, different DU vendors, etc., and you focus on the application of the value. So the RIC is absolutely necessary to deliver that, that vision.
Okay, yeah, Francesca.
Yeah, just one point. I think there was one question where was saying whether if we have, if we comply to the spec, if we have open interface with one vendor, is this Open RAN? Technically, if we comply, yes, it is Open RAN, but is it delivering? No, because the main driver for Open RAN was to drive and develop the ecosystem, because if we develop the ecosystem, the law of competition tells we're going to have more market players, and we're going to drive more innovation, which is what we want to have. We want to have new market players, niche players that are best in what they do in some specific layer, whether it's RU, DU, RU, the RIC, and we can choose best of breed. And eventually what we want to achieve is really software stack per deployment scenario, enabling flexibility of deployment. So I think the ecosystem development is important, and I will touch on these points because I was thinking, one co-panelist was saying the ecosystem is not there. That's not true. The ecosystem is there. Yeah. We have technology player, we have service provider that are committing on deployment, and we have a new value chain for system integrator that integrate the node, system integrator on the network, and system integrators that are looking also from application point of view and looking at how we can deliver, how we can use Open RAN to be a catalyst for enterprise transformation.
Okay, we'll move down the line and take a few of the points there, but I know there's a few points to be made here. Is that Ian?
Okay, so you had about 6 questions there. I mean, can you have Open RAN as a single vendor? If they're compliant to all the open interfaces, I would argue yes. You're sat next to one that does it. You know, the Vodafone, yeah, come on, you've already voted, Stefano. Does it have to be centralized RAN? No, you've got multiple deployment models. You can stick it all at the base station, and then it's a base station, but it's just built out of open components. You could have the DU at the base station and the CU centrally, or if you want to go down that road of working out all the bits and bolts of front haul design, which isn't specific to Open RAN, it's a RAN issue, you could try and centralize everything as well, and some people do. So, you know, and we've been involved in various trials and wider deployments of that. What was some of the other questions? I think you talked about the ecosystem.
What can make Open RAN more useful to a service provider and deliver some kind of value to customers that an operator might not be able to do now?
At the end of the day, you've got radio base stations. Open RAN is an option for deployment. Francesca's right. Let's create an open ecosystem with lots of new innovation going into it, so you get choice when you want different deployment models. Whereas at the moment, if you can't get what you want out of your existing RAN vendor, you've got to literally rip and replace, which many of the operators in this room have done several times in the last 20 years, and it's cost them a lot of money. Or they've got it for free from you-know-who. But it's still a lot of money. You can go down that road of getting that ecosystem. The ecosystem is there, but you've got the hardware, you've got the CAS layer, you've got the RAN, DU, CU. You've got to go through that integration testing. You know, so a lot of the industry has to come together to get that done, like initiatives in the UK with the Sonic Lab, some of the stuff that Tip's talking about doing. But then coming through and doing specific SI integration for operators who are going to deploy, like Vodafone. So there's lots of options in there. Can you have, I think you said specific hardware. I think there's even a halfway house. You know, everybody thinks that, you know, RAN is going to be plug and play. We're way off that. But one of the other things we have to look at is energy and TCO and all of that sort of stuff, particularly when you're moving towards big mainstream macros that would go into the kind of urban environment. It's not ready for that yet in feature set. Rural, definitely. Network densification, private 5G, definitely ready. But you've still got to then look at how do I optimize the cost of the system. You know, we've started off with a certain generation of CPU, with a certain way of doing hardware acceleration for the RAN. We're now moving to the point where other CPUs are coming out, and we're moving towards more inline-based part of the DU runs on an inline accelerator. That drops the cost and the power consumption significantly. So I forget who said it first. We're on a journey. We're down that journey. It's already delivering, but I don't know if that answers some of your questions.
Gil, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll say the key thing about Open RAN, it's the choice, okay, the ability to have a choice, okay, and previous motion was about digital service provider. It's really ORAN, it's a building block to achieve the higher level. It's very easy from a high level to look at the service and what you sell to the customer, but you need to have the underlying capability to deliver it. And ORAN gives you this underlying capability. What it gives the service provider, it's the ability to say, I want to introduce a new service. I am not tied to whoever is the one that provide me today the RAN network, and it's totally closed, and they need to buy into it and they need to enable it. No, it gives them the option to basically say, okay, can you provide this? No, okay, this other one can provide it. Okay.
But I want to I agree with Gil, but it's not about choice. I mean, ORAN is not, the end goal is not choice. The choice is the main byproduct, right? ORAN provides the architecture and the APIs to get to the end goal, which is choice, right? And that's an important distinction here.
Yeah, I can tell you, I remember engaging with a big Chinese operator, okay, that completely their network, and they've not, of course, adopted ORAN or anything like this for other reasons that were mentioned about the political, but at the end of the day, they say, over the years, what happened, and they use this metaphor, it's like we relied on the vendor, it's like, putting us and driving us to wherever they want. And they said we had the ideas of new innovations that we wanted to introduce, and the vendor didn't enable it. And it took us a year just to convince the vendor that provides us the RAN network that it's good, and then another year to get it. And those are the choices that I'm talking about. Exactly. It's the ability to say, okay, it's open, I can use someone else, and I'm not tied to you.
That's right.
So enabling the operators to take back control, just like we did here with Brexit. Right.
But so, reluctant to do so.
Sanjay, you wanted to comment.
So I think question 1, part 5 was about virtualization. It's funny that comes to the virtualization guy. But so you can have ORAN without vRAN, and you can have vRAN without ORAN. But in our belief is that when you put both of them together, you get the maximum benefit, because then you can get mix and match of real-time, non-real-time, CAS-based layers as well as virtual machines. I think back to the question of choice, I think someone mentioned the dish network. So we've had I guess both the brickbats and the bouquets to show what's happened at Dish. And one of the things that's happened there is a mix and match of the different vendors. So started off with one RU vendor, and now there's a second RU vendor, and there's a third one being qualified. So this is one of the power of the ORAN network, that you can actually go in and you can have this choice, not just in the RUs, but also, as people were saying, when software vendors come in, there's more innovation, and if you have smaller building blocks, then you can get even more software people, particularly if there's a way to pay for them. Right now, that hasn't quite been worked out yet, because the tariffs are still very much in question. But yeah, I think choice and openness, I think, is either a byproduct or a goal. I think both of them as part of ORAN.
Okay. And Kristian, is there going to be more choice for the operators that want to mix and match?
There's going to be more choice, but I think answering Monica's question about what's it going to enable, I think one of the key things is that this will take us to a true cloud-native environment. And that by itself means you can bring applications eventually, and you need that type of environment to build those network as a service capabilities that we need to become digital service providers as operators. So I think the cloud aspect cannot be emphasized enough in this, and we kind of forget it very often in this conversation.
Okay, thank you. I know Neil wants to make a quick point, and then we're going to come to over here. Neil, because I know you feel strongly about this.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, our first Open RAN deployment was almost, 6 years ago. We had an Ultra MIMO dish with Bristol University at Ashwell Park, and we've contributed a lot to it. But I think the question is what are we trying to achieve from Open RAN? And I've been writing open source software since I was 14, so, making things open
10 years,
is something, yeah. Checks in the post, Ray. What are we actually trying to get out of it? And a challenge, are we really getting more choice? Marvell and Intel. We're betting all the chips on those two guys right now. Sure, Qualcomm are coming, and there's a couple other guys, but they're a far way away from reality. Oh, but remember, Open RAN was never going to have any hardware acceleration. It was all going to be in software. And then the reality of physics hit us and said, it's really hard to do this in software, particularly if your CPU is 20 miles down the road in Docklands. So do we want more choice? Sure. Do we want innovation? 100%. But we need to have it sustainably. And that's my big worry. So we've got an Open RAN network in Leeds. It's been there for ages with Nokia, great partner of ours. And it works beautifully. Sorry, not Leeds, Hull. And it's coming to Leeds soon. In Hull, and it's working beautifully. We're using the RIC, which we think is going to make a massive difference to being able to do that network as a service. But some guy posts, it's not really real Open RAN. What? I mean, it's just laughable. So in my mind, are we going to get real sustainable change when we're working with effectively, really right now, 2 big players? Is the cloud going to be ever good enough that we can really virtualize? So today, right now, if you're an EE customer, you're running on a cloud-native Ericsson 5G core network today. So we don't need Open RAN to do that. We've done it. It's there. And then of the capabilities that we need, actually, one of the things I really liked about ORAN is it's going to make us turn 2G and 3G off. So please don't develop it. I mean, I know we ask for it, but don't do it. Because we need to kill that old shit if we want to be a true DSP provider. But I really struggle with, I'm a silicon geek. I really struggle with this notion that we're truly improving the diversity of the ecosystem. Because I really don't believe that we are. And we need to figure out, and I've challenged this with DCMS, where they've been really involved in Open RAN, doing a great job, but are we really making a difference? Who are the new silicon providers? What are the new silicon technologies that we can use, like programmable silicon, to really make a difference in this Open RAN capability and make it sustainable?
Okay, right. Now, we've definitely got some hands. Yes, we're going to come down to, well, let's start at the back there because the microphone
and very quickly, by the way, it isn't any cheaper than what we can buy today. That's the other big issue.
Well, no, because the economic challenges is part of the motion. So.
Hi, Charlie Ashton with Napatech. So I'm just wondering that now that we have these proof points with Vodafone and Verizon and Dish, do we have any insights into the cost savings that those carriers are seeing? I mean, they must be looking at their CapEx and their OpEx, and they must have had some ROI goals when they started these initiatives. So what do we know about the business results that these guys are actually seeing?
Yeah.
You start?
Yeah, probably it's not, to start with, right? It's not a cost savings issue. It's an enabler of new capabilities, new services, right? We keep talking about networks as a service, new levels of optimization, quality of service-based services, etc. So ORAN provides you a conduit, the way to deliver all those capabilities. The question of ROI, from the pure dollar point of view, is a very important one. But we're still in the process of, we keep talking about system integrators, etc. So maybe, as Neil said, the cost is about, the same. Eventually, I believe the issue of system integration or the need for system integration is going to evaporate. If we really get to the point of fully programmable networks that ORAN promotes, system integration will become a lot simpler. That part, which is a big cost, is going to, to be eliminated.
Yeah, you might not think that the cost part of it, but I think for a lot of people, it actually is.
It is, but I'm saying it's not a huge advantage. Nobody has proven that ORAN provides, today, the cost benefits.
And we don't have Tarek Amin in the room today to bring
yeah, well, actually, Tarek got it right?
That's a greenfield.
That's a greenfield, yeah.
Yeah, Francesca.
Just a few words from my side. I think we need to move away from the TCO discussion. This is a disruptive technology, and we can't really compare with a monolithic technology, which has been the status quo for long, and we have proven everything, how it works, how it's built, how it's maintained, how it is assured. And just I think we need to look at the capability that is going to enable and the benefit that is going to deliver in terms of innovative deployment, innovative services, how we can bundle with edge, and then start looking also at other deployment beyond the rural, and as well as to the enterprise. And I think if we start committing more commercial deployment, then we will develop further the ecosystem, we will trigger more investment, we will push the innovation cycle. So I think we need to have the gut to
well
do things.
said, Francesca. Yeah. Well said. I mean, that's absolutely correct.
What's the stock price of all the telcos in Europe right now? Just I don't know.
Yeah.
It might be important.
Gil, come to you.
Yeah, so the cost is also relative to the geographical and the options that you have. Okay, so Verizon was mentioned. I would say that from the data that I'm privy to, it's pretty much at par with the traditional system. But then again, North America doesn't have certain type of, let's say, a vendor that are allowed to sell that can cut the cost down. On the TCO part, I think it's a very good point. It also depends on how far you look at it and where, and how you amortize it, and what are, most of companies look at the, let's say, short-term, mid-term. I have 2 degrees in economics. Like first year in economics, you learn there is no free lunch. Someone is paying for it. How it's been paid, okay? So at the lower cost, when you have a vendor lock, okay, for example, you're actually paying it down the road. Just when you purchase it at the beginning, the CapEx, it's very low, but then later on, you pay a lot down the road. So it's really looking at the lifespan of the network, okay, and looking at those new services that you will be able to, again, many companies are still struggling, operator, to monetize them or to put their hands around what will be.
Well, I think a lot of them are struggling with the systems they already have in many ways. We hear time and time again. Okay, we'll come down here. If you could mention your name and your job title, please.
Yeah, hi.
With the microphone, please.
So hi, I'm Sanjay Nahal, and I'm from Sky Connect. So first of all, thank you to all the panelists. So when I've been listening
Sorry,
to you
could
guys,
you hold the microphone so the whole room can hear?
So when I've been listening to you guys in this session and the session before, I suppose what I'm always thinking is, what customer problem am I really solving? And that's not what problem am I solving as a service provider, but what problem am I solving for my customer? And then where is the opportunity for me to monetize that? And I suppose for me, and this is a question to all of the panel, what would you consider to be the one single mass market use case that this will allow us to deliver? And where do you see the monetization opportunity?
Okay, who wants to take that? And I want a maximum of 2 answers on this one. So,
2
Sanjay,
words.
we'll start with you.
The metaverse.
Yeah.
So first of all,
I'm not joking. I'm not joking. It's true.
So first of all, I would like to say thank you for how well you articulated a use case and the monetization opportunity. But I think when I look at mass market adoption, I think the metaverse is probably still for the mass market. It's vaporware. Yeah. It's a futurism, right? So I'm looking at kind of mass market adoption, maybe within the next sort of 5 to 7 years. Yeah. And I mean mass market, not unique use cases.
Yeah.
But Sanjay, would you answer that without Open RAN, the mass market metaverse applications are not going to be?
I mean, I was just somewhat facetiously saying metaverse, but everything leading up to the metaverse as well. And I think it's really going to come from the teenagers. It's got to start there. You put these phones in their hands and see what they do. And it's very different from the folks like us who use it. Even though Neil's been he's only 24. So, but if in seriousness though, if we make it truly programmable and we have services that we can deploy that cannot be priced as this is how many megabits per second you're getting per month. If we move away from that and make it much more dynamic, so we attach it to applications and how the millennials share, then we're going to get to all of the wonderful dollars that we want to see. It'll predate the metaverse, but when the metaverse comes, I don't think it's going to take 5 to 7 years. I think it's going to. I don't know how many of you have put one of those things on. They're very ugly right now, but they're shrinking. In a few years, they're going to be much smaller than what they are right now. But it's an absolute game changer, and it's not just for the consumer base, it's actually for the business base as well. You can just walk around in these worlds and from a business perspective too. So it's going to come a lot faster than we think it is. It's going to drive adoption and it's going to drive monetization. So there may be steps leading into it, but I really think that when the metaverse gets here, all of the stuff we've been talking about, if it's ready, the technology is ready, it's going to be the rocket ship that takes off.
Okay, Constantine, then Kristian.
Yeah,
I actually don't think...
Sorry.
Sorry, okay.
So I'll broaden it a bit. I'll give you two mass market opportunities. I want to be able to have two networks, no matter where I am. I don't care the provider, who the provider is. I want to have a network that is called Constantine, and that's my network. I'm sick and tired of Wi-Fi. The other day, I had to do an interview with TelecomTV, and I was not at home, at my home base. I couldn't find a reliable Wi-Fi. I had to beg somebody to open up their home to allow me to do the interview. So I want a network that is called Constantine and a network that is called Francesca, right? And I open it up wherever I am, and I get exactly the service that I pay for. I don't care who the provider is. And then I want a network called Juniper that, again, gives me access to all of my applications, SLA in particular, no matter where in the world I am. And there are two things that are unique to the telcos. They are the only ones who can provide it, and ORAN is the catalyst to get there. Think about that.
Okay, Kristian.
Yeah, so I don't actually think we are looking particularly for a use case or consumer or mass market use case for Open RAN. I think we are looking for how can we drive the innovation and efficiency of the underlying connectivity machine. And you can think about what's going to promote that future efficiency. The fact that we have closed solutions from 2-3 vendors, or we have a vibrant ecosystem which enables you to plug in new solutions software-wise or indeed hardware, where the combined R&D effort is much bigger than the existing vendors can jointly put together. So I think that's the primary driver, at least in my case.
Okay, Ian, then Francesca, and then we're going to come to the question over here.
So I kind of agree with where Kristian's going, because Open RAN is another way of building your radio. Open RAN gives you interfaces so you can go and get an RU from one vendor, a DU from another vendor, and a CU from another vendor, go through the testing integration process. And if that works out on your TCO, your power consumption, the capabilities you need across 4G, 5G, NSA, whatever, you can now go to market in a better way than if you were going with a traditional vendor. That's the vision of Open RAN. Then we've got the different layers of Open RAN, as Neil says. If you come down, we're down to a couple of chip vendors at the moment, right? At the moment. But if you look at the acceleration models, yeah, we're building a Marvell-based card. Other people are using Qualcomm. Other people are looking at EdgeQ. I think you're going to see a lot of different demonstrations at Mobile World Congress about how that impacts the viability of Open RAN. But the fact that you can get different components from different vendors gives you that choice. Now, we've heard that the RIC is going to revolutionize the world. There's a few laws of physics about that first, which is you have the near and the non-real-time RIC. The non-real-time RIC, 10 milliseconds plus, you don't care where it is, stick it in the middle of the country. The near real-time RIC needs a maximum 10 milliseconds round trip. There's only one operator in this room that has buildings in the right place to put a near real-time RIC in a position where it can serve multiple base stations with 10 milliseconds round trip.
We're in field trial as we speak.
But once you've got that building there, it's a mini data center. I'm not going to get into this edge thing and wherever it is, because that's been rattling on for years. But it becomes an edge cloud. And if it's an edge cloud, it's got the same virtualization layer. It's got the same basic infrastructure of servers, storage, and switching. So stick your UPF there, stick your firewall there, stick your applications there. Your radio is now helping you justify to build the stuff that if you want to have these new low latency, wide area mobility-based services, you can actually do it. Okay. Because up to now, everybody says, show me the one application that justifies all the base stations.
But the question
is... That's the telco way that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I'll take just 10 seconds. I think we know that customers are becoming more demand, the SLAs of the application are becoming more diversified, and Open RAN delivers the capability that enable us to have flexibility of architecture, flexibility of deployment, flexibility of software stack, so that the network can become service, customer, and application-centric.
Okay.
Very quick point of order. I just wanted to say, at the beginning of the session today, I set a timer on my phone to see how long would it take for someone to mention the metaverse. 93 minutes, and it was Sanjay.
Sanjay. Well and Graham.
Okay, so very quick question, and we'll get some very quick answers.
Yep, very quickly. Thank you. This is Azar from Red Hat. It seems like all panelists are agreeing on the vision of Open RAN. However, open is not truly open yet. And I'm sorry, Neil, I disagree with you. You've deployed Open RAN for some time. That's with one vendor. Ask that vendor if they can actually deploy a third-party XApp on their rig and control that network.
Well, you can ask them at lunch.
But just back to the panel.
Right.
I think there's the key question is what are you doing to enable your RAN vendors be truly open and actually realize that vision that all of you agree on? Because it doesn't seem like today we have moved from a hardware-based stack to an appliance-based model, and that's not really open.
Okay, Constantine, you put your hand up first. Very quick answer, and then although it's red at the back, I'm going to squeeze one more quick question.
It's a great question. I think the token is back to the telcos. What are the telcos doing to enable that openness, right? I can tell you, as Juniper, we are working with several radio vendors. We made a major announcement with Rakuten, working very closely with Altiostar, Parallel Wireless, CASA, etc. But the operators are the key. The operators have to push the vendors, the big ones, right, to open up and make openness a reality.
Okay.
When it comes to RAN.
Klaus.
I'm Klaus Martini. I briefly retired from Deutsche Telekom since after more than 40 years in this industry. This gives me some freedom to ask some critical questions here. I'm a little bit astonished about this optimism about Open RAN. I work most of the time in operations environment and take care about the management of networks. We are splitting or disarticulating the most complex part of the network in different boxes. Where's the optimism to make the integration of all these boxes much easier? That's one point. The second point is the power consumption of all these boxes will definitely increase, and that will drive the cost higher. Where is the benefit of Open RAN? I can't see that for the time being. So much optimism in this industry, which I definitely not share from an operations point of view.
Okay, so if somebody can take the systems integration question, somebody take the power efficiency question, who wants to take the integration question? Okay, Sanjay?
So the integration question, I think, is in two parts. I think a lot of the focus has been on the integration to get something up and running. I do agree with Constantine that I think that is actually the effort involved to do that is going to go down. I think the bigger problem is once it's up and running, how does it operate? So the configure, the upgrade, the maintain, the COM part of it is actually crucial. And at least from the software world perspective, we think that the way out of this is to go through a continuous integration, continuous deployment, also known as CI/CD process. But that brings some other issues associated with it, particularly those around security. So because you can think of some software player who's developed an XApp, suddenly hits release, and then all the way it comes down and it gets installed in your cell site, and lo and behold, some viruses come on your phone. That could happen. But if you don't get to an automated software process, the amount that you're going to spend on management and operations is going to be not what you expect from an Open RAN network. So if we solve the CI/CD plus security problem, I think that the management and operations will get taken care of. You have to believe that what is done in the cloud world and in the computer industry is going to apply to the telco world. And there doesn't appear to be any reason why it should not.
Okay. And then very, very quickly, because we also had a question online about this, about can Open RAN deliver greater energy efficiency than classic distributed base station architectures? Who wants to take the energy efficiency? Okay. Yeah.
Can it do greater? That I think is still to be proven, but can it do better than it's doing today? I think there's already stuff coming down the pipe that will be seen fairly soon that can do better than happening today. Whether we can get to the point where we're doing better than the traditional RAN, you can argue until the cows come home. Okay. I think you need to look at, and having been through the Deutsche Telekom O-RAN RFX process over the last 17 months, thank you for that. You've got to look at the configurations. You've got to look at the balance between the RUs that generate a lot of the power consumption against the baseband. You've got to look at the efficiency, not just the compliance. And operators are very good at sending out degree exam papers in 3GPP and O-RAN Alliance compliance. Don't just look at the compliance of the software vendor for your DU and CU. Look at the efficiency of the DU and CU code. Now, what we found going through various RFPs is you can have the same compliance, the same configuration, the same traffic model, and you can have wildly different efficiencies of code delivering that service. So look at the efficiency of the code. Some people can come out with, you know, for say 2,000 or 3,000 base station deployments, some people can come out with 6,000 to 7,000 servers needed at the cell sites with centralized CUs. Some people can come out with 17,000 servers to do the same job, and yet they all had the same compliance, they all had the same traffic model and the same configuration. Now, most of the RFPs we've seen so far haven't got to the point where operators are pushing the, with the exception of certain people on the panel, they're not necessarily pushing the layer 1 acceleration argument because it's relatively new. But that will drop down the amount of cores you need significantly. It will drop down the, therefore, the number of servers you need, which means your TCO comes down fantastically. Your power consumption comes down significantly as well. And that's just with the technology we can see on the table today. So again, it's a journey. There's a lot of people out there innovating in this space. They do need nurturing and bringing together in the ecosystem that Kristian was talking about in terms of integrating them into actual use cases operators can deploy.
Excellent, thank you. Sorry to the folks that we didn't get to for questions. There was a lot of hands. Hopefully you get a chance to chat during the breaks and lunch and maybe get to ask some questions later on. But at this point, I'm going to hand back over to the guy because it's voting time for this motion.
Yes, when the fun stops, stop. No more talking. No more talking. This is it. Let's remind ourselves of what the motion is again. It's the world's it's the longest motion of the day. Blah, blah, blah. Are you against the motion, in which case you believe in what Graham has to say? Are you for the motion, in which case you're being swayed by Chris's arguments? Don't forget, if you're for the motion, let's have the green forward. If you're against the motion, let's have the red forward. Please raise your interactive voting devices now. It's still quite close, but it's green. It's green.
Yeah,
it's green.
Thank you.
60-40. It's green. That means the
Remember the butt.
Yes.
Remember the butt.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Terrific discussion. Terrific debate. Lots of great questions. Thanks, everyone. It's a real short break, about 15 minutes tops.
Break.
See you back here in 15 minutes for debate 3. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well done.